So, what if decades of UFO sightings, psychic phenomena, and all sorts of paranormal investigations were all leading to one single, totally shocking source? Well, that's what we're getting into today. We're exploring one of the most detailed and, frankly, bizarre documents in paranormal history. It's a story that starts with strange lights in the sky and ends with a years-long conversation with an entity claiming to be from another dimension. This quote from one of the investigators we're about to meet really hits the nail on the head. The deeper you go into this stuff, the weirder it gets. Researchers call it high strangeness, and believe me, the story of the raw material is maybe the ultimate example of that. And that's really the big question for us today. See, the story didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It was the end of a very long road for a small group of researchers who were just determined to follow the mystery, no matter how strange that path became. Okay, so to really get how the raw contact even happened, we need to jump in our time machine and go back a bit. The mid-20th century, it wasn't just about poodle skirts and rock and roll. It was this absolute hotbed of bizarre phenomena that seemed to break every known rule of science. You've got to understand, the investigators we're following, they weren't just looking at UFOs. They saw this much bigger mystery playing out. They were trying to connect the dots between pilots seeing impossible aircraft, people who could apparently bend spoons with their minds, and even hypnotic trances that seemed to reveal past lives. For them, these weren't separate little weird events. They were all pieces of one single gigantic puzzle. And for the people in our story, this wasn't just some abstract news headline. In 1948, a decorated pilot, Captain Thomas Mantell, died while chasing a UFO. Now, here's the thing. Mantell was an instructor at the very same flying school that Don Elkins, the guy who would lead the raw contact, attended. This made the whole mystery deeply personal. These weren't just stories. They were baffling clues hitting way too close to home. So who exactly were these people at the center of this incredible story? I mean, what kind of person decides to dedicate their entire life to chasing down these mysteries? So at the heart of it all, you have this really fascinating and kinda unlikely partnership. On one side, you have Don Elkins. He's a college professor of physics and engineering, super methodical, analytical, the one they called the questioner. And then paired with him is Carla Rueckert, a school librarian who was deeply intuitive, very open-minded. She would eventually become what they called the instrument. Now, Carla's whole approach to this research was, a little counterintuitive. She basically felt that if you went in demanding absolute, hard scientific proof, you just get in your own way. Her philosophy was that you had to be willing to suspend your disbelief, to even be, like she said, gullible, to give these strange phenomena the space they needed to actually happen. And listen, this was not just some weekend hobby for them. In 1970, they went all in. They formed LL Research and dedicated themselves to it full-time. Their one and only mission was to finally connect all these strange dots they've been collecting for years and try to uncover the bigger picture of reality. For years and years, they investigated dozens of scattered phenomena, fleeting contacts, little clues here and there. But then, in January of 1981, everything changed. A single, powerful voice emerged from all that noise, a source so consistent and so profound that it would just eclipse everything they had ever encountered before. It all happened during what was supposed to be a pretty routine session. They were trying to contact a friend who had passed away. But then, something totally unprecedented happened. For the very first time, Carla fell into a deep, unconscious trance. And the voice that started speaking through her was definitely not their friend. It was clear to everyone in that room right away that they had just stumbled onto something profoundly different. This new voice, it didn't give a name like you or I would. It called itself Raw and said it was a social memory complex. Now, this is a core idea in the material, and it's a wild one. It's the concept that an entire planet civilization could eventually merge all of its consciousness into one single unified being, a collective mind that holds the memories of billions of souls. And get this wasn't a first-time visit. According to Ra, they had been here before. We're talking 11,000 years ago, trying to share their understanding of the universe with ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians. So here's the really crucial claim. The researchers believed they were talking to a consciousness that was millions of years more evolved than we are. In the system Ra laid out, evolution happens in stages called densities. Think of it like grades in some kind of cosmic school. Humanity, right now, is in the third density, learning about choice. Ra, on the other hand, exists in the sixth, a level of unity and wisdom that's almost impossible for us to imagine.
All right, so with all this wild cosmic backstory, what was the actual message? After more than 100 of these sessions, what was the one thing this entity really wanted to communicate? Well, it all boils down to a single, surprisingly simple concept: the law of one.
And this quote, man, it just nails the whole thing. The law of one is this philosophy of just radical, absolute unity. What it's proposing is that ultimately, there is only one thing in the entire universe: a single, infinite creator.
So, in this view, everything we see, every person, every planet, every star, every single rock, is just the one creator experiencing itself in infinite different forms. So, the purpose of our lives, according to Ra, is to learn the ways of love, and through that, to remember our connection back to that original oneness. And this wasn't just some abstract philosophy class. The material actually offered practical, daily exercises to help people experience this unity for themselves. The whole goal is to consciously shift how you see things, to practice seeing that single creator in other people, in yourself, and in the world all around you. But here's the thing. Regardless of what you think of the message itself, you just can't deny the sheer discipline the group applied to receiving it. To make sure they got the clearest communication possible, they developed this meticulous, unchanging ritual that they followed for every single session. The three of them operated like a well-oiled machine. Each one had a critical role. Dawn asked the questions, Carla was the trans instrument, and Jim McCarty acted as the scribe, while also providing this kind of meditative support to keep the energy in the room totally stable and harmonious.
Yeah, this was so far from a casual seance, it's not even funny. The process was incredibly precise. It involved things like a preparatory massage for Carla so she could lie motionless for hours, a group meditation to unify their intent, and even aligning her body to a specific compass heading. Every single step was part of this strict protocol designed to create the clearest channel possible. And the level of detail, it was just astonishing. Every object had a precise purpose and placement, from a specific chalice of water to a Bible open to the first chapter of John. And this whole setup, it wasn't their idea. They were following instructions that Ra had given them in the early sessions, right down to the letter. So where does that leave us with all this? I mean, was this an incredibly complex, shared delusion that was just born from decades of wishful thinking? Or was it a genuine communication from some kind of non-human intelligence? The material itself gives you no physical proof. All it offers is this profound, consistent philosophy that asks you to question everything you think you know about reality. All 106 of those sessions were transcribed and published in a series of books, starting with The Raw Material, An Ancient Astronaut Speaks. So if any of this has sparked your curiosity, you can go directly to the source and read every single word for yourself. Because in the end, as the material itself insists over and over again, the choice of what to believe is yours and yours alone.